circumstances. I can't complain. Could always be worse, especially under the circumstances.
Yeah, circumstances. I don't know how I'd characterize it, but it seems like they're going to be changing, better or worse, routinely, monthly, weekly, based on, what we're forecasting almost.
Yeah, it's weird because you and I talk about it a lot, and I mentioned the whole where I go back and forth. One day I think it's going to happen, and then another day I'll be a lot more pessimistic. So I think I've in the last couple of days I've probably been more pessimistic than I have been optimistic. So who knows how I'll feel in a couple of days. But you ready to get started?
Yeah, I've been likening it to football with the different tags like questionable, hopeful, and doubtful.
That's a great one.
Questionable, they're playing unless it's like a game time decision, pregame warm up. Hopeful, which is where I'm at, like, okay, docs, give us the go ahead, and then doubtful, like, all right, it's not happening.
Exactly. So I'm the same way, riding a wave of emotion, trying to figure it out. Sometimes I'll be around some kids and my juices get flowing, and then I don't want to allow myself to get overly optimistic and then get let down. But at the same time, I don't want to come across to my kids like I don't think it's going to happen, because how impressionable they can be. So
teetering a tough line. We're all there.
Let's get started. I'm going to do a formal introduction. I have my man, Kyle Williamson, head coach, Rancho Bernardo, good friend of mine. We talk quite often, haven't talked face-to-face in a while. But this is year 7, going into year 7?
Year 6.
Okay, going into year 6.
Year 6.
Total of 15 years coaching experience. I know firsthand that you have a CIF championship. You knocked off a team that I was coaching in the semifinals to get that CIF championship. So quite familiar for that. Great to have you on here. A wealth of knowledge in terms of the scene. I know people probably don't realize I don't want to say how much you know, but you're not one of those people that are out in front of, on all the social media sites and saying this and saying that. And you're the kind of guy I have to ask you for your opinion. You're not going to just come out of the way and give it to me. So it's good to have you and be able to share some of your thoughts about you and then kind of what's going on in the state of the game. So I'd like to start all of these with kind of an introduction to how you got started in with basketball in general, not necessarily coaching, but what are your first memories of you kind of falling in love with the game, whether as a player or a fan or however?
Ooh, yeah, that's a tough one. Like, I remember getting introduced to the game back when we moved up to Temecula. That was probably in 5th grade. So we moved here from San Diego to Temecula and played like the youth rec leagues. So I kind of got introduced to it in 5th grade, but then we moved a lot. So my dad moved us to Iowa and lost interest in it and picked up hockey. Because
hockey in Iowa?
Hockey in Iowa. They play hockey. They play hockey in Iowa.
That's news to me. I thought that seemed like basketball country. You'd fall more in love with basketball.
You would think so, being so close to Indiana, but it's big time over there. So basketball wasn't as big to me until we moved to Arizona in 8th grade, and then that's when I started picking it up. Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson were kind of the people back then, dating me a little bit, that I kind of started following throughout my youth time. That kind of got me motivated to play a little bit more, watching the game, learning some things. But 8th grade was kind of when my dad kind of settled down from one job in the banking industry to running his own business. And with that time, he was actually able to be the high school coach. So that's when I kind of got into basketball and got motivated the most to start playing it. So he was the big influence that kind of got me going in the sport.
So son of a coach, that usually usually reveals a lot about a player. You can usually tell a lot about the son of a coach as when you watch him play, and more importantly when you watch him talk.
We're definitely I don't want to say well groomed, but we're definitely put in the right frame of mind to be politically correct on everything, and make sure we're very refined at what we're doing. And to mention on that, I'm the son of a coach, and my brother, he's also he's a head coach at the University of St. Catherine right now. So that's how I got my first introduction into the coaching game, was because of my brother begging me to join him when he first got his job in Arizona.
Is he older or younger?
He's younger. So it took a lot to get me into the game, because at that point I was, really working in the golf industry. I was trying to become a professional golfer and working my way up through that, running golf tournaments around the country. And so he had to basically beg me to, join his staff and come teach with him in Yuma, which is in Arizona. So it took a lot. If you're familiar with Yuma, it took a lot to convince me to quit traveling around the country running golf tournaments to come and coach with them.
So what level was this that you first got introduced with coaching with your brother? So
this was so he, at the age of 21, got the head high school job at Kofa High School in Arizona, boys varsity basketball. So I was his assistant coach. That was back in 2007. And in the first year, we actually took them all the way to the state Final Four in the 5A division, which is the biggest division in Arizona. So that kind of made me get my juices going for coaching, be like, hey, this is kind of fun. We can do this in 1 year. Let's see what, this roller coaster ride is going to look like. So I put golf on the back burner from then on out.
So it looks like the streak continues of coaches that are males that started coaching boys, ended up coaching girls, and I'm going to venture to say you haven't looked back when it comes to coaching boys again.
So it's funny how that works, and I'm sure there's a lot of us that have done that. When I first got introduced into the girls scene was when I actually my brother left to go start coaching in college, so I stayed here in San Diego and joined Coach Jim Cho on the Rancho Bernardo boys staff, and they have Bronco youth basketball. So he's like, hey, you want to make some extra money? You can coach the boys and the girls. So I'm like, sure, why not? I just coached Seoul, so I'd got some introduction there for the girls side. And literally after maybe 2 seasons of coaching girls, I'm like, all right, I know where my head's at. I'll keep coaching the boys. I enjoy this. I don't think of myself now only as a boys coach. I just think of myself as a coach. And it started changing from then on. Was it something that you saw immediately or pretty rapidly, that the difference between the boys and girls, and something that eventually drew you to the girls? Yeah, I mean, it was an immediate change for me. I got blessed first off with some really good young players that, they just listen so well, and everything you ask them, at least at this age, and for the most part in high school, they're going to do it to the best of their ability to do it exactly as you ask them. There's not as much freelance. I'm going to do it myself. We're going to play a little one-on-one. So that structure is something I like, in the sense that whatever I'm asking them to do, I know they're going to go out and do it to the best of what you're asking them to do it as. And that's really what drew me to it. But most importantly, my style of play, at least then and somewhat now, really fit that group that I had, with pressure, full court press, run and jump trap, all that stuff that I really like to do. That group, which was my first group, was a perfect fit to it. And I'm like, hey, this is different than playing man-to-man half-court basketball like we were doing with the boys. I like this style of play. This is what I grew up with. This is what I'm used to. And that's kind of how it all unfolded and changed for me.
So you were doing Bronco ball for a couple of years?
Let's see. So I was the boys' assistant coach from 2009 to 2015, and during that whole time, I was coaching the girls' youth Bronco ball on the side as well. So what's that, 6 years? Coached them for 6 years.
And was it something that you had your eye on? I mean, obviously the previous coaches, they had some success. They won CIF the year before you got there. Was it something that you had even thought about, maybe being the head coach of the girls down the road?
Funny, when one, how do I say it? in 2000, I think it was about 12, the previous coach to Kai Harris, actually previous coach to before Kai Harris, had left, and the athletic department like kind of asked me, hey, we know you're coaching the youth club. Are you interested? And that was kind of when I'm just starting to get going with this group. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I really still view myself as a boys coach. I hadn't started that I'm a just a coach thought yet. So they had kind of asked me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just not ready. So when Kai got the job, which was great, he started turning that program around. I was watching those girls that I had coached in Bronco youth basketball becoming freshmen and sophomores. I'm like, this is fun to watch them growing up. And then they left, Coach Harris and Coach Palumbo, they left to coach at Miracosta, and parents from that youth group that I had coached in Bronco Bar, like, hey, literally the day after they announced that, Kai was going, hey, are you interested in the girls' job? Let's contact Peggy. You interested? So immediately I was like, you don't even need to ask me. I'll already contact her and see what's going on. So I was immediately interested, wanted the job. I was going to do anything I could to, make sure I could find a way to get it, and got lucky enough to get it because I know from what Coach Bros told me I beat out a pretty good pool of candidates at that time because, as you know, we had just won CIF in Division III and had 4 returning starters.
And brought a lot back too. What? So what I'm trying to figure out, like, the timeline. So the age of the group. So you actually those kids that you coached in youth were already playing at Rancho Bernardo. So you had already basically funneled that talent to them. And so kind of give me a sense of what age or what year those kids were when you actually took over.
So that was when I took over. It was 2015-16. They were all juniors. So that group that I had coached as 5th, 6th, and 7th graders, they were juniors when I took them over. That core group, we added a girl my first year, transfer from Poway. But like those 7 or 8 girls played with me for like 2.5 years at Bronco youth basketball. And then I took them over in their junior year. So I got 2 years out of them.
I'm thinking that must have made the transition for a first-year coach smoother than it normally would be for any. I mean, speaking of somebody coming off their first year as a coach, I'm assuming that that familiarity with those kids and those talented kids kind of made that transition easier for you.
And that was probably to be honest, I was never thinking I was going to go and become a girls' high school head coach. I was actually at the point where, we had some tough times on the boys' side, and there was a transition there, and I wasn't really sure if I wanted to stick into coaching or not. But when that girls' job came open, I'm like, I know this is about the only place I want to be because I know this program, I know these girls, I know the younger girls. So that transition was about as smooth as it could be in the sense of knowing who you have. And that's really what made me, completely sold on wanting the job. It's like, I know who I'm getting. I know what I'm getting, and they know, and the families know what they're getting out of this.
I think
that was a sell.
The biggest change for any coach is culture change. And for you, a lot of, obviously you probably still had to do a lot of work in terms of culture, but a lot of the things that you were saying, I'm sure phrases you use, terminology that you guys use were familiar to at least some of them, or at least the core group, right?
Yeah. So it was funny because when I took over, I got the job at Labor Day. So we were already back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was late, it was very late. I remember getting the job, and then 2 days later we had, at that time, I don't know if Marlon, Robbie, and all of them still run their summer series. Mm-hmm. Literally the next day after I get the job and get introduced to the girls in front of everyone at school, we're playing a summer league game. And, it took a while to get them to continue to grasp what we had used to talk about and those concepts and teaching points, because my system and what I do is completely different. So that took a little bit of adjusting, but it was, literally the first game we're playing, I just remember it, we're playing against Robbie and Mount Miguel and in that summer league game. And I don't know anything about the girls' high school scene. And And I asked the girls, I'm like, so who's this team over here? They're like, Mount Miguel. I'm like, are they any good? I don't know anything. They're like, well, they just lost in the CIF championship team to Horizon. And I'm like, oh, so they're good. And they're like, yeah, well, their best player's over there sitting there running the scoreboard. So we got a chance. I go, okay. We ended up losing by like 10 or whatnot. But you could see immediately going from concepts of 2-3 zone that they're used to playing to we were full court pressing, doing different kinds of zone press, different kind of man-to-man press. You could see that they knew what we were going to try to do and change easily, and it's just going to take them time to understand and continue to grasp what they had learned with me back then.
So year one was the year after CIF, and then how did that year go? Because that's not the championship year, right? That's the next year, right?
So year one was 15-16. We lost in the semifinals my first year in Division II to Imperial. We had to drive out to Imperial in the semis, and they ended up winning it all against Bonita Vista with Shyla that year. So we had a good season. We played in a super tough league. I mean, we had a tough schedule, but we played in a super tough league with 3 open division teams back with Torrey Pines and Sierra Campazano, Poway, and Westview all in the open. And in that year, Casey McWilliam was at Mount Carmel, and they were like the 2 seed in Division I. So we had a super tough league. So, I think we had like a 18-win season first year. So I know the girls were kind of happy with that, but I know they were still like, we left so much out on the table that they committed themselves to the summer that year pretty heavy to make sure they could come out on top their next year.
So I talked about how your transition there with some familiarity of some of the players might have made the transition easier. But now that I think about it, what kind of expectations or pressure did you feel the fact that it was a returning, they were defending champs and you guys brought back a lot of talent? So even though there was that familiarity of you knowing some of their kids, there's still a level of pressure taking over from the defending champions with a lot coming back.
Yes. So that was immediately felt like every, and not in a negative way. It was just like, hey, and their record, because they did, it was kind of like about where we were my first year. I think the year after I took over, they were like 14-13. So it was kind of like, we're building. They went from a 0-win team to a 6-win team to a 12-win team to a 4. So they were building. So I knew that coming in, like we had to raise the bar a little bit. And I remember parents being like, okay, are you ready for it? We know you're good. Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this challenge? We want to win. We want to win now. We got 2 years left. Like we're banking on you to kind of help us get over that hump. Not necessarily win a Palomar League championship because they knew what that entailed, but for their division at where we were at during that time in Division II, that we want to go up to the next division and go out on top. So you could kind of, you could feel the pressure from not necessarily the players, because we had a good group of girls. They were a lot of fun. They didn't ever, as competitive as they were never like, coach, it's win at all costs. It was more like the parents, and what's a great set of parents, living through their son and daughters like last chances, like, hey, we want to get another one and you're the guy to do it, but you're going to know when we're not like playing our best. And so, yeah, there was that pressure, but in a good way, because I like that kind of pressure. It means you're playing for something. It means you're not sitting there going into a game not nervous or anxious to see what's going to happen.
How did you feel? I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but how did you feel going into that the season, the championship season, knowing that you had got past year one, no more rookie jitters? What was that level of confidence going into that season? Was it the cliche where we knew we were going to win it all? What was your level of confidence going into that season?
So there were about 3 or 4 teams that we knew could do anything that year as far as winning the championship. So we were not anywhere overconfident. I'm, as we've talked about, I'm so pessimistic in the sense that, like, even if we're a good team, I don't go in thinking, all right, I'm not telling my girls or players this, but I'm not going in thinking, we're going to beat this team, or I take every team seriously. So, and over plan for everything. But as far as that season, our girls came out with the mindset in the summer that their goal was to win and get to CIF at a minimum. And so every time from the start of summer, every breakdown we would do is CIF on 3. So like we were prepping mentally for that stage. And we knew Mira Mesa was good. We knew Scripps was good. And there was one other team in playoffs, I can't remember who it was, that we were like, if we see this team on any night, anything can happen. And we just, once we got to playoffs, like, again, Palomar League, I think we were like 7-3, a couple tough losses to Poway by 1 and a tough loss to Westview by 2 or something. So we knew we were prepared at that point. Our whole goal that year was CIF, not Palomar League Championship. So pressure was there and we knew it. I don't know if the girls felt it. I'm sure they did. I got a lot of gray hairs that year. I feel like I started balding a little bit, even though I'm not. But I feel like the amount of pressure just with every game, it was great because we lived up to it. But it just became a point where it's like text messages from, and in a good way, from parents who were playing the next game or what we did or how we did it. And it's just like, I just want to have a night off. It was to the point where once we got to the semifinals after we won our quarterfinal game, I started telling the girls in the locker room, I go, I don't want to know who we played, so please tell your parents not to text me tonight because I want to enjoy the win tonight, because that's how it kind of was the whole season. It was we won the game or won, whatever battle, but let's enjoy it for a little bit, not immediately already be focusing on the next step. So when we got to the semifinals, it was just like, man, I'm glad we got here. I hope we can do it. I think we can do it. Let's see how this plays out.
I remember that year a lot because that was actually the first year that we really started doing this Hoops Report thing. Mm-hmm. And I remember you guys played Sarah. My kid was, I think she was sitting out. And I remember I watched that game and I actually filmed it and broke it down, having no idea that we were going to meet you guys later on in the season. But I remember thinking you guys were really good. And when we had first started doing rankings that year, and you guys were always, we would do 10, obviously. You guys were always in that 8, 9, 10 range, mm-hmm. which is not, you say, okay, no big deal, but you guys were Division II, which we rarely see a non-Division I, non-open team, really crack that top 10 and, really be in the mix with those heavyweights. So I remember you guys were really, really good. Is that something you were aware of at the time? Like, not just Division II good, but we're good.
Yeah. No, honestly, and like you were saying earlier, I'm not really on the social scene. I mean, a lot of coaches may or may not know me, and the ones that do, we have great conversation with, and we talk a lot and whatnot. But I pay attention to the social media every now and again, but not too much. So I didn't really know where we stood. Like, I can only ever judge us based on if we play like that year. You're talking about Sarah or Bishops, and we played them, and then mostly Poway and Westview. So that's really where I'm judging my team at. And I remember looking, because it was playoff rankings were not by Max Preps that year. It was still by CIF. And I remember looking at our ranking right before we played Poway on senior night, and I go, we're the 6th seed in the entire Division I bracket. We'd be in the open. Now we lost to Poway, which might have bumped us. But we were looking potentially before that loss on senior night to a 6, 7, or 8 seed in the open division. So that was when I kind of first was like, maybe we're a little better than where we are, but let's go out and actually prove it. And then we lose to Poway that night. So yeah, I do remember that we were, a little bit better than maybe where I had pegged us to be.
So bring up some painful memories. So that game, I was at Mira Mesa, assistant under Coach Lonnie. That's probably one of the toughest games that I've been a part of. And I'm going to tell you why. It goes back to what you said in terms of, always being a pessimist. And knowing that, I'm always the kind of guy that I always make fun of. I'm going to bring up Lee, Coach Marshall and Coach Croce, because I always say, and my daughter was laughing at this, I could ask Lee who they're playing, and they could be playing a 3rd grade CYO team, and Lee would really convince herself that if they make some shots and if Palomar doesn't come to play, they can lose. And on the flip side, I could be talking to Chris and they could be getting ready to play the Lakers, and they're not that good. I think we can get them. And I'm definitely a whole lot more like Lee, where I'm always worst case scenario. But I really felt confident going in that game. I know we had a lot of preparation. This was probably one of those rare opportunities where the fact that I had done this hoops report stuff, I felt like I knew your team really, really well. And we game planned, really, really well. But at the end of the day, you guys were really, really good. So it's not like, a play here, a play there, or we weren't prepared, or you guys cheated. It was one of those games where we were prepared, you guys were prepared, you guys just happened to come out on top. What do you remember about that game?
Man, I remember the biggest thing I remember, just the environment. It was crazy. I remember because Open Division played on a different night. There was girls, I think, from either Bishops, or I remember La Jolla Country Day girls coming in there. So it was and again, in the semifinals the year before, we went to Imperial. It wasn't a packed gym. So I never really, as far as the girls' side, got to experience a cool environment like it was that night at RB in the semifinals in a big game. And it was, maybe 500 people there. For us, that was pretty good. So I remember from the beginning just walking in the gym, having a different feel, like, okay, this could be the last hurrah for these girls, this group of 7, and like you said, we had prepared so much on Monday and Tuesday, and we had seen you guys and you had seen us in the fall. Well, we hadn't seen all your team, but in the fall we had played a little bit. So we knew some of the strengths, you knew some of our strengths. So it was like, who's going to execute down the stretch? And the biggest thing I remember was, what's the post name? Bella. Hitting a big 3 when we were up just after half to tie the game. And all I remember turning to my coach and going, it's on. Let's see who responds. And then we just went up. We got lucky. We got hot. I think Lolo hit like 3 straight threes. And I remember going from a tie game or down 1, and all of a sudden, not to bring up sore memories at this point, but all of a sudden right before the end of the third quarter, I'm like looking at the board. We're up 15. What just happened?
Just out of nowhere, right? Exactly.
Yeah, just out of nowhere. And then the biggest thing I remember is, unfortunately, Bella getting her 5th foul on a charge call. And I think that pretty much swayed the end of that game down the stretch, because if she was in the way she was playing, she was just so dominant and strong off the dribble and the ability to shoot the 3 ball from literally that volleyball line, which she had done a couple times that night. We were struggling with it. And I think that kind of ended up giving us a little bit of an edge down the stretch.
It's ironic because another reason why that game was so hard is because that was the second year in a row, and no disrespect to the 2 teams I'm going to mention, in that case, Scripps, but actually the year before, when I was at Horizon, we were in the semifinals of Division I against Eastlake, and I had the same feeling against you guys, is that the winner of that game was going to win the championship. Again, no disrespect to the team that was on the other side of the bracket. Yeah. It was one of those situations where I felt like the two better of the 4 teams were on the same side of the bracket, which makes that semifinal game so much more. You're not playing in the championship, but you really feel like you are. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah. Like I said, I looked at that game as, this is it. Like, whether or not we win the championship the Saturday or whatnot, like, this is it right here, ladies. You got, arguably one of the top 3 teams in Division II here. If you don't play your best in this big moment, like, there's nothing to look forward to tomorrow except the sun coming up and going to school, and, may or may not be disappointed. So, yeah, looking at it that same way, it was like, I'm not even and no disrespect to Scripps, because they were a great team. James does a great job, and they had 5 really good players. But I'm looking at it like, Mira Mesa has probably arguably the best player in Division II in Bella, and you guys had some really good guards. And the way you're able to scheme it up, I'm like, you guys, just as easily as us, on any given night, with the way we play, with the way you play, can beat anyone and could be the favorite in that championship game.
And it's funny, we joke and I talk about it being a painful memory, but that's one of those games where even when you lose, it's not like, you felt like your team quit on you, or you felt like you weren't prepared. And again, it's a tough loss, but one that you can live with, because, again, you guys were prepared, and they gave it everything you had. So it's funny because as great as you guys were that year, I think the coaching job you did the next year was phenomenal. I mean, so you guys beat us in CIF. We come back more loaded than we were the year before, and we play you guys in I think it was at Westview in a Westview tournament, and you guys, I'm going to be frank, you guys looked really bad. I mean, really bad. So talk about where you guys were that day we saw you, and then how your season ended up playing out, the rest of the season, because you guys, that was a great job you did that year.
Thank you. Yeah, so that year, man, that was an interesting year. I mean, as you know, lost literally everything except our starting point guard. Our one other girl that we had, two other girls that were on the we returned 4 girls, 1 starter, a post player, and then we were going to have 2 other guards. Unfortunately, one who was going to be my starting guard, who ended up going to Mount Carmel, was an all-league player. Unfortunately, she moved back to Mount Carmel area, and I wasn't able to get her the rest of her time. She was a sophomore, Juliana Van Leeuwen, so she would have been ideal for that team. And then Montana Denton, unfortunately, had a season-ending ankle injury or something before. So we literally had 2 girls returning from that team. Not much coming up from the JV, 1 or 2 girls, couple of freshmen. Like when we played you in that early tournament, and I don't even know who was there, but we were just trying to get the ball across half court. You guys had so much athleticism and talent on that team. I told Lolo, I go, all right, hey, just calm head. Let's just see if we can get better. We have so many young girls. Let's be a leader. And if you remember Lolo, and I know you do, from all of her time as a youth player to that sophomore year, she's the lead guard on our championship team. She was your prototypical pass first, defend, shoot an open 3 point guard. She wasn't an offensive juggernaut or didn't ever have to be. So I spent that whole off season and even in that fall, like, convincing her, I'm like, we have 2 girls on this team that we have to look at as scorers, and it's you. So you got to change your mentality of, pass first, get the ball out of your hands. So let's keep the ball in your hands a little more. We're going to run a bunch of on-ball screen and double screen stuff for you. And when we played you, we also didn't have our lefty, Acacia Denton. Not that it would have made a difference at that point, but she was definitely a solid 16-a-game night player then that year. So when we played you, we were just learning. We were as raw as you could get. And that team, I mean, I'm telling you, and I've told you before, we work tirelessly defensively, and we do a lot of man-to-man stuff, whether it's in the full or the half. But that group worked every day, 30 minutes or more with shell defensive rotations. And by the end of the season, we were a really good half-court man-to-man team. And we thrived with Lolo and Acacia, both of them averaging 17 points a game. So we had 2 girls that could put the ball in the bucket. And then we were thankful to have a couple 6'1" and 5'11" girls that could defend the post, rebound, alter shots. And once we figured out our identity not being anywhere near the previous team with the full court pressure identity, once we learned that it wasn't going to happen kind of in the fall, that's when things started becoming a little more clear on what we wanted to do. And they just gained confidence. I think, we ended up beating, I think our confidence game was we ended up beating, we had 3 wins in a row. I think we beat, the big one was against Westview to start it off, like the second round of league. They were an open division team with Mac Orbell. They were good. We ended up beating them by 2. No, sorry. We ended up beating Del Norte first, and who had a good team, as you guys beat them in the playoffs
that year. Yep. Yeah, they kicked our butts in the regular season.
We beat them, and then we beat Westview by 2 in our gym, and then we had a downer senior night to Mount Carmel, but then we beat Poway at the buzzer on their senior night. We were at that game.
Yeah.
Crazy finish, and got lucky, beat Torrey Pines, who had Rachel Shen that year in the first round, and then almost beat a really good Bonita Vista team. Gave them all they could handle in the first half that night, and ended up losing the quarterfinals. But I think it was just confidence, repetition, and figuring out who our identity was, whether they wanted to play defense the way I coached them to do it and how much we practiced it. That was their success.
So I want to go back to that Poway game because, like you said, I was there. That was a great game. And I want you, if you can remember, kind of walk me through those final moments that led to – and it's funny because if you look at it, it does look like I could see how people would say it was a lucky shot. And obviously, I mean, in the game of basketball, a lot of shots that go in are luck. But talk about kind of how we got through that, what the mindset was when you drew up the play and kind of, talk me through that moment.
So, well, first, I mean, I think we were down like 11 points with 2 minutes. I can't remember. And as I just was mentioning, we were not a full court press team, so we had to do it, and we actually had a little success against them those final 2 minutes. And I know Lolo had hit a couple threes. Acacia made some things happen, but we full court.
Morgan had a couple plays.
Yeah, Morgan was great, and she was a freshman at that time.
Yeah,
so she was huge. She ended up getting that final assist to Lolo on the three. I remember them turning the ball over with like 15, 16 seconds left when we were down 2. And we come down, we run a play, and the initial option or two is not open, and somehow the ball gets over to the wing, and it goes off my girl, and then one of their girls goes to dive at it. As they're diving, it goes off Poway. So there's like, I don't remember, 5 seconds maybe, 4 seconds, I can't remember, and I'm calling out our zipper play. And it's the initial option. We have 2 options on it. The initial option is to get it to the weak side guard and have this little screen off the initial inbounder coming off that strong side there looking for her. And if that's not open as it occurs, our post from the block is coming up to set an on-ball screen. It happened to be right in front of our bench. And literally Lolo was right in front of me. So as she shot the ball over, I mean, it had to be high. So we talk about lucky. I mean, you got Colby Neal, 6'3", extended
volleyball player
jumping at this 20-foot three-point shot. And I'm looking at it, and the whole time it wasn't like, oh, this is going to be a swish. The whole time you could see it's dead on the backboard in the middle of the square. And I'm sitting there as it's going. I'm starting to move. Like I got my arm going up. Like I can see this going in. And she banks it in, doesn't even hit the rim, total bank swish. And all I remember is just doing some doofy dance, like with my arms in the air, and the girls are over there celebrating. And I'm sitting there going, did this just really happen? I mean, Jay just had a masterful game. We got lucky. Some things happened, and a prayer was answered on that three. And was it luck? Probably. Could she make that shot one more time out of 100 that way? Probably not in that situation. But it was just, I mean, for what we did against, the game before against Mount Carmel and laying an egg to the work that those girls put in the next 2 days, because I was so pissed. The work they put in, they earned it. I mean, they earned that hard-fought win. And I think that propelled us to win that playoff game the next night. Because if we would have lost to Poway, losing both those games, it might have been looked at a little differently. If we had lost Mount Carmel Poway and then lose in the first round, people might not be going, oh, wow, you went CIF and then lose everybody and win 21 games. They might not look at it the same as how we capped it off the way we did.
Yeah, I really, I really remember that season. I just was amazed, by how well you guys did, because again, expectations were from what we saw you guys in September, October to where you guys finished. It was a masterful job. So again, it's not a championship season, but it's definitely one that you should be proud of. When I interviewed you were actually the first person I interviewed when we started doing this. And one of the things you talked about was your defensive philosophy and how important that was to you. Can you describe kind of what your beliefs are on the defensive end?
Well, I mean, it started off one way and it changes, but when I was in club, it was zone pressure, ball, ball you, man. Like that was like my big thing with our zone pressure. And then here's how we read and react on traps and whatnot. And then once we got into high school, I'm like, zone, I don't know if it's going to work the whole game. So we immediately started back in man-to-man stuff, which we had worked on a lot in club, but with the youth girls. So it became all man philosophy. Like, all right, here's how we're going to defend. And the most important thing is, keep your girl in front of you. That's all you want to work on. Like, you shouldn't be, if you're guarding the ball, your only responsibility is worry about keeping your girl in front of you. Okay. If you're 2 passes away, here's your philosophy. If you're 1 pass away, here's how your body is. Here's your angle. Here's your head. Here's your position. Like, so we work a lot of those fundamental concepts. And the biggest thing for me when I was teaching those first couple of years, those girls that I coached in club, was first rotation, second rotation. Like, we got really good at the first rotation. So we really harped on that initially. And that concept isn't totally difficult, but, you got to pay attention a little bit. The second rotation is, that help the helper, I call it. That's where we really got good as a program learning that, and girls seeing it. And before I could even start saying it, most of the time, the girls on the baseline, hey, help the helper, second rotation. Like, it's just funny how they learn that stuff. So changing from that zone philosophy to man immediately coming into high school was a big first step. And that's pretty much what we've been ever since I've been coaching at RB. Is we'll mix in zone very, very seldom. It's funny. I think when we played in playoffs last year against Poway and the year before against La Costa, I called up Chris. I'm like, hey, what do you think about me running zone a little bit against La Costa or Poway? He goes, you know anything about zone? I'm like, no, what can you teach me? He's like, I don't know anything. I'm man-to-man. So that's how much I do zone. And we ended up running zone a little bit against them. It's just not for me anymore. So I focus all my time and effort into our presses. It's still the same thing. Ball, you, man. Where's the ball? Where are you? Where's your man? And then keep the girl in front of you. And then, help side positioning and help the helper rotations are my big things that we like to work on.
We played more zone than I would have liked, meaning we played pretty much zone all year. And it's so hard when you don't want to do it, but you kind of have to. And that's where we were. So trust me, I understand. What do you think, like, when you talk about teaching the zone versus the man, is it something where, I know it's your philosophy or that's what you like to do, but is it something that you find that the girls struggle with more than the boys? Or is there a defense that you think the girls are easier at learning than the boys, seeing as you have experience with both?
Well, I mean, I think it's natural for the boys to pick up man-to-man easier just because you're used to seeing it so much earlier in youth ball or teaching with the boys, whereas most of the time with girls, at least from what I've seen and done, is you start them off in zone and you kind of let them play an area and learn how to go guard a girl. The thing that I found was, well, first off, you need to have a little height with the girls to be able to play zone. So I haven't traditionally had a ton of that, but, and no disrespect to anybody, I feel like at least in my zones that I've tried, we get a little complacent, a little lazy, and those rotations from the big skips, those rotations and breakdowns from one side of the court skip to another, having that bottom side defender go out, close out before that weak side top defender goes and gets that rotation so the bottom side defender can drop back down. Like, those kind of things, it takes a lot more patience for me as a coach to develop those rotations. And it leaves a lot of gaps open, which I'm fine with losing to teams that are just going to straight up beat you because they're making shots. But for me, if we're just allowing teams to have open shots, I'd rather them just go ahead and beat us by saying you're just better than us. You got better athletes, you got better plays, you're better pro, whatever it is. So I just don't have as much patience for it, probably because I might not be a great teacher of the zone concepts and philosophies as much as I might be man-to-man wise. And that's just probably because I'm not sitting there looking at playbooks and studying things on YouTube or whatnot for different kinds of successful zone principles, whereas I might be doing that more for man-to-man.
And it's funny because I know the irony of it is, when I'm talking to our kids, especially against our zone offense, we talk about that second and third rotation, and most teams don't have it. Mm-hmm. The problem is that your team has to force them to make those second and third rotations. So it drives me crazy, what you're saying about the importance of the rotation. And I'm telling my kids that if you flip the court twice, just flip it twice, you're going to be open. But The problem is it's such a hard concept for them that they want to keep the ball on one side of the court, and you make a bad rotating defense not have to rotate. So it speaks to your point of you emphasize something that I'm telling my kids that I know most teams aren't going to be good at, which is that second and third rotation.
Yeah, and you know what the funny thing is, that's why I don't like doing it, is because whenever we try it, it's usually because we're playing a good team who we can't stop penetration on or whatnot. And you know what? They got really good zone offense, and like you just said, 2 rotations of the basketball from side to side, and now my team's getting beat. They're getting a little lane to the basket, dump off to the middle for an easy jump shot or a little layup or a weak side, jumper. And that's where I end up going, all right, that's my patience thing. I just don't have time to go back to the drawing board at practice, go, okay, let's break this down. I'm like, all right, I can break down your man-to-man stuff. Well, that's easy. But yeah, that philosophy and that patience for me isn't there with that zone.
This is getting to be a real defensive nerdy interview, but I love it. So I want to talk about where I struggle with man defense is the idea, and this goes very high level. The idea of man-to-man defense being team defense. So we were at a camp this past weekend, and I was again trying to instruct some kids. But I'm wondering how it comes up with you when you're teaching man defense, since that's your preferred style, is the idea that it's my job to stop my man, right? So a poor help defender is typically because they're scared to leave their man, and the idea that, well, my man didn't score, but there's 2 points on the board, so it doesn't matter whose man scored. Kind of how do you walk through that process of understanding the importance of team man defense, even though it's obviously man-to-man individual, but the concept of helping, being a part of, not just guarding, hugging off the ball, everybody's got to be watching the ball. How do you incorporate that in terms of teaching it to your kids?
First off, we gotta start off with that philosophy of, doesn't matter whose man scores, 2 points is 2 points. So how do we find a way to make sure we don't allow that? I mean, I don't care if your girl scores 20 or if the team scores 20, as long as we got 21, that's fine with me. So the biggest thing is, first, again, emphasizing those rotations, but I try to talk more about the more we can play laterally defensively and make the team go east to west, whether it's by passing the ball a bunch or dribbling the ball a bunch, you're going to win more often than letting your players go north and south. So, like I said, keep the player in front of you is our big thing. So the more we can work, and it comes back to defensive slides and all that work you don't want to do. But one thing I like talking about is making sure that you make the offensive team pass the ball 2, 3, 4 times. Make them have to move the ball, because really good teams, Mission Hills does a great job of being one of the most unselfish teams. Move the ball. You can't game plan against one good player. But a lot of times you can kind of scheme things up, and so you talk about that in your pregame stuff and whatnot. But making the team move the basketball around, especially what I don't see as much of, but there is on ball and weak side screens. Like, make the team move. So if you don't have to worry about those teams moving off the ball or using on ball screens, then okay, we talk about those rotations, help side, 2 passes away. All right, that girl beats you, make her make a pass. Close out, make that other girl make a pass. So if we could get the ball moving 2 or 3 times, all right, that's great offense if you're doing something with it. So the biggest thing is take time off the clock. Make them have to work the clock. So the more we can get them to pass the ball and get the ball out of main players' hands and make tough shots or shoot jump shots, preferably, I'd rather give that up than get into the paint, getting easy shots, and letting second and third chance opportunities happen. So we're more willing as our program to let girls, at least I shouldn't say that now with my team last year, we're a lot smaller, a lot more feisty. So we're aggressive everywhere. So we give up a lot more second opportunities just because we're not as tall. But it used to be, all right, we'll settle for them shooting a jumper. Just let's not give them second and third chance opportunities or get to the basket.
Yeah, I know. Also, the thing with me is pressure. A lot of girls, and I guess this wouldn't just be girls, it's boys too, but the fear of getting beat off the dribble when you're pressuring the ball, that, I tell my kids all the time, if you're doing your job pressuring the ball well, then there's a good chance you're going to get beat. But we sped them up. Now, maybe they had a set that's supposed to go to the left or right, but now they're in the basket. Now they don't know what to do. But again, it's that fear of, well, I got beat off the dribble, in terms of embracing the team concept as opposed to just you. Your job was to speed them up. If that means you got beat, you got beat.
Yep. And I found that it's a lot easier on the boys' side for them to be, okay, I got beat. I come back with that moxie, that same amount of, okay, I don't care. I got beat that time. I'm still going to play the same kind of, try to speed them up. If I get beat concept or mentality. Whereas at least for a lot of my players in years past, like, okay, it took a while to make that adjustment. Like, I got beat. Man, I don't.
So now I back up.
Yeah,
I back up because I don't want to get beat again.
And it takes, I mean, to play at the varsity level, you got to have confidence anyway. You got to have a certain kind of swagger a little bit. To play at a high level varsity-wise, you got to have even more. So it takes that confidence, and it takes, your team being there to back you up, knowing, all right, that's part of the game plan. That's what coach wants you to do. Speed them up and make them uncomfortable, or make them take quick shots that they don't necessarily want to do. And then once they get that built-in belief from your team, your coach saying, hey, it's okay. That's what we're looking to do. You're doing part of the game plan. And they slowly build that confidence up to where then they're believing in themselves and what you're trying to do with that. And one of the teams that we see all the time that does a great job with that is Westview. I mean, they've been amazing with that kind of, in our league, that kind of pressure doing that.
I think a lot of it goes back to what value and emphasis we put on stats. Mm-hmm. Something that even when I first started coaching, I remember thinking that a defensive rebound is better than a block shot because a block shot can go out of bounds. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that a lot of youth coaches emphasize, like you said, you speed them up, you force a quick shot, you get a defensive rebound. That's a win. There's no stat for it other than the rebound, but that's a good defensive possession. And I don't know that a lot of that philosophy of thinking that it doesn't have to be a stat play to be a good play always gets resonated to the players and unfortunately some of the parents.
Yeah. And the hardest stat that there is overcoming the ability to not worry about what your offensive stats are, because I feel like that's the only stat that most people are really worried about is what shooting percentage, how many points, how many assists, how many, whatever it is, what's your shooting percentage, all these things. And then for the taller post players, yeah, they're looking at some of their rebounds or their blocks. But one thing that
contest is good. Contesting a shot is good.
You don't need to block the shot, just affect it, and then you get your defensive rebound. I mean, I don't do stats. I did it my first year, and I found that we're so interested in the stats that I posted on Max Preps that, every time we post a stat, there's something wrong. Oh, you didn't give me enough rebounds. You didn't give me enough points. You didn't give me enough. I'm like, I'm done with this. So I am not a stat guy anymore. I never was. I only did it because the previous coaching staff had done it, and that's what the expectation was. So I'm not a stat guy, and we have a lot of non-stat girls. Like, they buy into, like, hey, we're just here to play. We're here to get better. We're here to win. And most of them couldn't even tell you their stats. And that's, to me, in my program, in our program, that's amazing. Like, to know that they're not worried about, hey, coach, I know we lost, but how many points did I get tonight? That's like the last thing as a coach you want to hear.
Definitely don't want to hear that. So, again, this is something we talk about a lot. We're in some crazy times. I don't really want to get too much into whether or not a season's going to happen. I'm interested in wanting to know kind of where you guys are as a program right now in terms of Zoom meetings, outside workouts, videos? What are you because I've been asking a lot of different coaches about, and everybody seems to have a different plan. Some people are, moving on like it's, going to have season's going to start. Some are, taking a step back. I talked to Grossmont and Grace was talking about how she was not, obviously nobody's happy about what's going on, but she said her program needed the break. So kind of where are you guys as a program in terms of what's going on right now with us being on pause?
So, I mean, in the summer, starting back to the summer, we did some outdoor workouts like once a week, all, individually based, no contact, no passing, no anything. So we basically like shooting workouts. It was great to get them out there so they can engage with one another, talk, socialize. And that was, for what we were in, that was kind of cool. That was nice, And this fall, kind of the same thing. Once a week workouts, but we're in the gym, but we got to wear masks the whole time. Can't do any all the same rules applied. Luckily, we're just in the gym. We've definitely taken a step back as far as we're kind of, not really forcing the girl's hand to like, hey, you need to be here. We're just offering it as, hey, this is an opportunity to get out, be with your friends, be part of the, the team program, maybe learn some program stuff for the new ones. But I know, and this probably goes for any high school coaches, players who are more advanced or, they're playing club. So I know most of them are at least out there having the opportunity to do something with their club, whether it's, Soul or EBO or PBC or whatever, whoever, they at least have a chance to be doing that stuff once or twice a week. So just offering that opportunity once a week for the girls to get together, to be in a non-Zoom setting, whether they hang out or not in general after school or on weekends, I don't know. So that has been really nice to kind of see them in a competitive, more laid back environment, get to know them a little more than worrying about, okay, here, we got to get onto our practice plan. Where it's like you spend a couple minutes, shooting the breeze with them, and then it's like, let's get serious, let's go. More, it's, it's more fun in the sense of I don't have any stress right now to get you to where I need to get you because we don't know. Which is also a double-edged sword because now I'm not preparing for my favorite part of it where it's like my favorite thing is the process. All right, where do we start in the summer? How do we look at the end? I love seeing how that evolves. So we're not doing that part.
One of my biggest fears is seniors and those that are hoping to play at the next level. Obviously, yesterday was signing day for a lot of people. Great for those people that were able to sign. Where I know you have Morgan, who's going to be a senior, right?
Yes.
Kind of where's your level of anxiety when it comes to again, because I want to play. I definitely want to play, but my biggest fear is my kids that aren't going to have that opportunity, that weren't lucky enough or didn't have the opportunity to sign early. That fear that they're not going to get another chance other than, any potential club to impress college coaches to have an opportunity to play at the next level. How are you dealing with that?
Well, I don't know if it's good or bad. We only have 2 seniors. Morgan's one, Savannah, who's more of a track, looking to go to college for track stuff. So it's tough. I don't even know how much the club coaches are able to help them out in the sense of what can we do to get them seen? I don't know if the college coaches are able to come out and take part of any viewing, if there is viewing stuff or not. So it's you really, and I'm not sure what Morgan's planning to do, if she wants to go basketball-wise or not, or just go to straight school. I know she's got a couple schools that are interested in her basketball-wise, and then some other schools that she's just interested going to school for. So, you feel bad for the player not being able to know what you can do to help them out, how you can reach out unless you are connected. And that's tough because now, thankfully we got through last season, but you're talking about some players who might be missing spring sport, players that might potentially miss 2 seasons. How do you go about recruiting unless your coach is just connected or you're doing basketball, you got those club contacts that can help you out? I feel like that's just in general, about the only way is those club coaches getting them out there, getting them seen, or you have diligent coaches or family members who are continuously hounding or contacting these colleges that your daughter or son might be interested in going to.
I've said it a lot. I have two softball players that were on our basketball team last year, and it would make me ill if they were to miss 2 springs. Like, as much as I want to play basketball, we did have a season last year.
Mm-hmm.
I know obviously Country Day would say that they didn't get to finish, but we got to play, you know what I mean? And for those, I guess it'd be men's volleyball players and softball players, baseball players, for them to miss 2 seasons, that would just be terrible. So as much as I want to play basketball, I'm really, really hoping we can get those spring sports in so those kids can play.
100%. Yeah. I mean, hopefully we get lucky in our state, and at a minimum, those kids have the opportunity, because you're talking about junior and senior year of high school. Like, that's really what you're looking forward to, being an upperclassman. For the most part, that's when you're starting to make varsity. You have those exceptions more often than not in girls basketball. You got a lot of girls freshmen and sophomore who do make varsity. But you're talking about players who are finally making varsity. Like, this is when they're starting to look out for colleges, starting to get good, and now it's taken away. So, yeah, my heart goes out to that situation, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed. And I know we had talked about my relation to the fantasy football and how I'm thinking with this, and I'm keeping it to the point where, like, I'm at that hopeful to questionable level, where the questionable meaning they're probably going to play at least for those spring sport athletes. So
I'm going to get you out of here. So I want to know quickly, kind of, it's been a lot of success since you've been there. What would you say in your time at Rancho Bernardo that you're the most proud of in your short but still long coaching time you've had there?
I mean, I'm just proud that I've had the opportunity to coach a lot of great kids, whether it started back with the boys side, especially that championship group, to this, these girls now. Really proud to be able to say, like, I have, and this goes for any coach, but girls that I know are going on that are going to make, whether they play basketball or not, they're going to make a difference in society and the world. They're just highly academic girls that truly put academics before sports. So I'm really proud that I get to coach girls that I know they're going to relate to what I'm talking about and adjust to how I'm asking them to go about doing it, and in a way that they're not going to be giving me looks, upset. So I have these high quality players that I love coaching. I mean, I'm proud of every team we've had, like you said, that year after CIF. I mean, just no business being that kind of team and having those kind of success stories. Like last year, having 3 freshmen as starters and winning 20-plus games. Like, those are great. But definitely that championship team is probably my most proud moment. That and my first year in the boys side, winning CIF in Division I. But definitely the girls' championship season is, like, I don't know how you can – I mean, hope. I don't know how I can top that, but that was pretty memorable.
So last question, give me a sense, or just kind of tell me about a name or two that maybe we don't know. Obviously, I'm familiar with Morgan Forbes, extremely talented player. You had a really talented freshman class. But just give me a couple names that maybe those that aren't familiar with your program should be looking out for this upcoming season that we're both optimistic we're going to have.
We got in the junior class, we got Morgan and Savannah as my seniors. Mikey Jereza is an up-and-coming junior. She's doing really well. My freshman class from last year includes Elise Tokashige, who's a very solid starter for us last year. Nora Park, she's just amazing.
One of my favorite players of all time is Nora Park.
I mean,
I love Nora Park.
Yes, if you guys listened to what I said earlier about defensive philosophy and concepts, this girl, like, you would love having this player. So she's amazing. Like, I can't find a way to get her out of the game. Marion Makatula, who is a dynamite sophomore. led us in scoring last year, all-league player. And then I got a freshman who I'm super excited about, Maria Gorbishin. Very, very good player, very high-skilled player. Seems like she has a high IQ for the game. And I'm super excited to get her into the program, get her involved, and see what she can do is mixing it up with this group.
Well, I want to thank you. I know you had to work a lot of work-life balance, having a young one around. So I appreciate your time. I do want to say again, you were the first person I interviewed. We did the Coaches Insider when we first started doing this Hoops Report thing, and you were my inaugural interview, and you set the bar really, really high. So I appreciate that. And also on a personal note, a lot of coaches were very influential in helping me in my first year, late night text message conversations after games, talking me off the ledge, and just giving me a lot of advice. And you were definitely one of those guys. So I really appreciate that. And again, I wouldn't have made it through without the support of the coaches like you guys. So I want to thank you for that, and thank you again for your time. And hopefully we'll see each other on the court.
Fingers crossed. Thanks, Haseen. I appreciate everything you guys do for San Diego County Hoops girls basketball. You guys are amazing, and glad I could help you out this year and look forward to more.
Sounds good. We'll talk to you soon. Talk to you
All
later.
right, Haseen. Bye-bye.